Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Pay my homage to Buddha Dhamma Sangha, pay homage to Bada Bhante, Guru Bhante, Bhikshu Sang, and my metta to homage to all the Bhikshu Sang and metta to Upasikas. So very hearty welcome to this evening, a very special evening, because we have with us our guest Bhante, Venerable S. Dhammika Bhanteji. So we of course have this every Sunday evening, but today is a special one. So before I hand over to Bhante, let me read out a short write-up about Bhante. Shravasti Dhammika Bhante was born in Australia in 1951 into a Christian family and converted to Buddhism at the age of 18. In 1973, he went to Thailand with the intention of becoming a monk, and from there to Laos, Burma, and finally to India. For the next 3 years, he traveled around India learning yoga and meditation, and finally ordained under Venerable Mathivella Sangaratana, the last disciple of Anagarika Dharmapala. In 1976, he went to Sri Lanka, where he studied Pali at Sri Lanka Vidyalayan and later became one of the co-founders of the Nilambe Meditation Center and one of its teachers. Since then, he spent most of his time in Sri Lanka and Singapore. Bhante Dhammika had written over 25 books and scores of articles on Buddhism and related subjects. He is also well known for his public talk and represented Theravada Buddhism at the European Buddhist Millennium Conference in Berlin in 2000. So we are very fortunate to have Bhante with us in this evening. And as Bhante says, you all should be prepared for Bhante's different views on our Theravada, including. So he has some different views which you may not usually hear. So be ready for that. So I prepare you for that as well. So I request Bhante to give his talk now. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Okay, thank you for that kind introduction, and thank you also for inviting me here tonight. I know something about your place here because Bhante Ananda in Bangalore, he and I have been friends for maybe 30 years, so he always keeps me informed of what's going on. And in fact, about 6 months ago, he sent me some pictures of this place, the stupa down there and this beautiful shrine room. I was very impressed, I must say. I thought I might share with you some of my ideas about meditation. Mainly because I like to speak spontaneously. This sometimes gets me into trouble, but it sometimes means that I say things that people find interesting. So I was having a long discussion with somebody downstairs while you were doing your chanting and that, and as a result of that, I couldn't think of anything to say to you tonight. But as I came in the door, I saw you all meditating. So I thought, I know, I'll stir them up and say something about meditation. But I'm not going to talk to you as a meditation teacher. I am not a meditation teacher. I did that for 20 years, and in the end I decided not to do it anymore. There are several reasons for this. I have got a saying: if you become a teacher, that means you have bad karma. If you become a popular teacher, that means you've got really bad karma. And if you become a famous teacher, that means you must have done something really bad in your last life. What do I mean by that? Well, I have found, my experience is that some people become really good meditators. Other people ask them to share their ideas about meditation. They do. They become popular, and then they become so popular they don't have time to meditate. I think this is a real problem. And then things start going bad. The second thing I've noticed is the prevalence of what everybody seems to be interested in nowadays is what they call vipassana meditation or mindfulness meditation. That's good. But my understanding is the most popular type of meditation is kangaroo meditation. Now you're thinking, he's an Australian. This has got something to do with Australia. No, it hasn't. It's about kangaroos, and one of their habits is they hop from one thing to another. So I have noticed that many people take this approach to meditation. They go to a meditation course, they're inspired, they're determined to practice meditation, they're going okay. Then 6 months later, a well-known teacher comes to their town. He teaches an entirely different type of meditation, and they think, ooh, that's good, I'll do that. So they drop what they were doing and start doing that other technique. Oh, that's a little bit difficult. And then so one day they read a book on meditation and it teaches a completely different type of meditation. So they drop that one and they hop to this one and they just do this all of the time and they become confused. And I have the experiences that people think that because I'm a monk, I meditate, which is true, I do. And they come to me and they say, I'm having problems with my meditation, I'd like to talk to you about it, and I tell them to go away. I said, if you have a teacher, ask that teacher. Don't ask me. I may take quite a different approach to meditation. I might be doing a completely different type of meditation. Secondly, I don't know your character. I don't know what your psychological background is. I don't know what's best for you. I just met you 10 minutes ago. So I find that people tend to hop from one thing to another, take advice from different people, read different books, and they end up becoming quite confused. So I think the best thing to do is look around, listen to what you hear about different types of meditation or different teachers, decide on one, and stick to it for a while. Do not ask advice from other teachers. If you have a problem, ask advice from that teacher. If after some time you think that's not inadequate, then try something else. But this switching from one thing to another, one time after another, I don't think that's very good. So I don't teach meditation, and I'm not going to teach you meditation tonight. I'll tell you, or I'll share with you what I do. So I do quite a lot of interesting things. One thing is I move when I meditate. I don't know where this idea came from, but some people think that in actual fact, meditation is a keep still exercise. Whatever you do, don't move. Okay? And I have noticed that meditators move in 3 different ways. This is the first way they move. And in fact, tonight I was watching people and I saw some people do this. They meditate like this. That's the first way some people move in meditation. The second way people move in meditation is they sit with their eyes closed, then they look to make sure nobody's looking. That's the second way. It's all about impressing other people. And the third way to move in meditation is like this. Now, the first two ways are not very helpful. The third way is, in actual fact, you're moving, but if you had your attention on your breath and you had an irritation or a scratch or something which you have tried to deal with, but it's becoming a hindrance, then you switch your meditation from your breath to the movement of your hand. In which case, the continuity of your meditation has continued. And my feeling is that if you sit down and think, my God, I'm not going to move, you become tense and tight and you tend to move more. Whereas if you are relaxed and you feel that moving is not a great crime, then chances are you probably won't move as much. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I take different approaches to meditation. I started meditating with Goenka in 1976, I think it was. And I still am very grateful for him for teaching me meditation. I benefited a great deal from his approach, and I thought he was a great teacher. I still think he's a great teacher. Has anybody here meditated with Goenka? Put your hand up. Lots of them. Oh. So, one thing I learned, or one thing I appreciate about him was his laugh. Dukkha. I thought that was great. All meditation teachers should laugh at least once. I remember the first meditation course I did with him was in a small Burmese temple in Varanasi. It was in the summertime. There were about maybe 40 or 50 people in that hall. We were very crowded. It was hot. I'd never meditated before. And on the second day, I think it was about 10 hours a day, on the second day I thought, my God, this is hell. What am I doing here? I've got to get out of this place. But I can't just get up and walk out. I'll wait until he's finished and then I'll sneak out. And that night he gave a talk all about suffering. And he laughed and made a joke out of it. He explained what dukkha means. He described exactly the experiences that I was having. And he made me feel that if I continued, I'd be able to overcome that. And I did, and I stayed for the whole 10 days. He's a very skillful teacher. I did 2 other courses with Goenka, and I continued that for quite a few years. Then I thought there might be more to meditation than this, so I moved on to other things. And when I got to Sri Lanka, I met a man who was a librarian. And I think he was one of probably the most remarkable people that I've ever met. Now, everybody thinks that their guru is the best guru in the world. Well, he was never my guru. He definitely wasn't a guru. He just told you what he thought about aspects of the Dhamma and how to meditate. And at that same time, I started to read books by the famous Thai meditation teacher, no, achancha. And I noticed that these two people had a very similar approach. They really didn't have a technique. They just said, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Just see if you can be very mindful and relaxed and notice things. And when you're not meditating, have as few expectations as you can. Apply the Dhamma as best you can in your daily life, and just continue dealing with each situation, each problem that arises. So both these people, basically, they didn't have a technique. Goenka certainly had a technique. It was a very technique-based approach, and that's okay. But I think it doesn't offer a lot for individuals. And if you do a meditation course with, say, 50 people in it, they're all different. This guy's hot-tempered, that guy's very sanguine. This guy just got out of prison, this guy's married. They're all different. How can one technique be good for all of them? So the idea of not having a technique, I think that's what I like. And so, for the last 10 or 15 years, this is what I do. Fortunately, I left Singapore after 20 years, a few years ago, and I live on a small island about 20 kilometers off the coast of Australia. And I'll tell you something about this island. Before I was a monk, when I went to Burma, I went to Bagan, which is the ancient city in Burma. And I remember I went to one of those beautiful golden pagodas, Swegugi it's called. It was a stinking hot day, and there was marble stones on the ground. And the sun, the glare from the sun on these white stones was awful. Anyway, I walked around this stupa. There was a Burmese guy with me, and I saw a small pavilion where there was a man reading people's palms. So I went under that small building to get out of the sun. And there was about 10 people there waiting for this man to read their palms. So I just watched him, and when he'd finished one customer, he said to me, "You want?" I said, "No, I don't believe in that nonsense." If your future is on your palm and you get your hands cut off, what happens to your future? It doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, I said, no. He said, "Oh, well." I said, "Okay." I can't remember what he told me, except for one thing. He said, "This will happen to you, that'll happen to you, you'll get this, you'll get that." And then he said something in Burmese which I could not understand, so I asked my friend, and he interpreted, and he said, "The man said, you will become a monk." And I thought, that's a good guess, because I'd come to Burma hoping to become a monk. And then I thought, every man in Burma becomes a monk. It's good, not a good guess. Anybody could have guessed that. That didn't impress me at all. Then he said, "You will live on an island." My friend interpreted that. Didn't mean anything to me. And then the man corrected himself. He said, no, you'll live on 2 islands. That's it. And about 10 years ago, that's nearly 35, 40 years later, I was writing an account of my early life, and I remembered that incident, and suddenly I remembered that as a monk, I've spent my whole life on 2 islands, Sri Lanka, which is an island, and Singapore, which is an island. Wow, maybe he was right. Now, I'm not the only one who lives on the island where I live now. My brother lives there too, and my brother has no interest whatsoever in Buddhism. He has never asked me a question of what I do or anything about Buddhism. He has no interest at all. Anyway, a few months ago, I told him that story. I thought he would be impressed. And he said, "Bull." I said, "You've got to admit." He said 2 islands, Singapore and Sri Lanka. He said he was wrong. You're living on an island now. That's 3 islands. I thought they'd laugh. Didn't work. Anyway, I think that's funny. Anyway, this is the meditation I do now. I live on this small island. I have a small garden. I have my library, which is very precious to me. I have a computer. I spend some of the day writing. I spend some of the day just cleaning up the garden. And I spend more time now meditating than I ever have before. And I do 3 types of meditation. The first type I do is what you were doing here when I came in. I simply sit in a comfortable position. I relax my body and I just watch my breath. And I find it very relaxing. I find that with relative ease, my mind becomes still. I don't see any thoughts as an enemy. When thoughts intrude, I simply observe them, I push them aside, and just re-establish my attention on my breath. I call this technique buying mangoes. Now, I've seen how people buy mangoes. You probably have too. Watch them next time. They'll go to the fruit stall and they'll pick up a mango and they'll squeeze and put it down. Then they'll pick up another one. No, not that one. Then they'll pick up another one, squeeze it. How much is this? Oh, okay. They pick up each one, they examine it briefly, and they put it down. That's the attitude I cultivate to thoughts that come into my mind. I do not consider many thoughts to be failure, and I do not consider having few thoughts to be success. I just take it that that's what happened today. That's all. The second thing I do is what is called in Pali anusati. Now, nowadays, it seems to me that everybody knows the Pali word sati, which means mindfulness. But sometimes I give a similar talk to what I'm giving now, and I find not too many people know what anusati is. Can anybody tell me, does anybody know what this word means? See? They don't know. I suspect they're so shy. What does anusati mean?
They may not know the Pali, but they may know the English word of that.
Okay, we'll try. That word is usually translated as recollection. So I collect something, I collect it again, to recollect or to collect again. And this is a meditation taught by the Buddha and emphasized a lot, although it seems to me, reading books about meditation nowadays, doesn't seem to be very popular. Everybody thinks that Vipassana is the Alfa Romeo of meditation, so they don't want that other one. They want the high-class one. That might be a mistake, because the Buddha taught quite a lot of different types of meditation, and I think he did that because there are lots of different types of people. We're not all the same. We come from very different backgrounds and we have very different states of mind. And therefore, it is only sensible that we have different types of meditation. So, anusati means recollection. If anybody can tell me what 1 or 2 or 3 of the recollections are, I will give them a reward. Does anybody know? What was that?
Tell loudly. Marananusati banta.
Marananusati, you're quite correct. That's one. No, that's not one of the recollections. That's one of the satipatthanas, but your first one is right. That's not one of the recollections. It is one of the meditations, but it's not one of the recollections there. Anybody else? Correct. Okay. We'll end the competition or they'll all run away.
They're like,
I say, I won't ask them anymore, otherwise they'll all run away.
no, it's a lot of them are like visitors. So,
How are they? Buddhanusati, Dhammanusati, Sanghanusati, Silanusati, Chaganusati. Then there's another one. What's the next one? You seem to know. Do you know what the next one is? Okay. So when you read what the Buddha says about it, quite often the next one is Deva Anusati, recollecting on the Devas. But there is several other suttas where the Buddha drops that one and he puts Kalyana Mittanusati. Kalyana Mittanusati. So let's say Buddha Dhamma Sangha, Sila, Chaga, Kalyana Mitta, Marananusati, and Upasammanusati. That's the standard list. So those other ones that you mentioned, Asubha Bhavana, that's certainly, but that's not in that list. And you mentioned Kaya, that's right, yeah. Okay, so you might say that in relation to thoughts, there are 3 types of meditation. To stop thoughts, to utilize thoughts, and to observe thoughts. So you might say that some approaches to mindfulness of breathing would be the first one. You try to stop thinking. Now, I'll give you a hint. It is possible to do that. It is possible to stop the stream of thoughts. What you do is you go to a sports shop, you buy a, a baseball bat, and you ask your friend to hit you over the head with it, and you won't have any thoughts for hours. Right? So, you can do that one. To utilize thoughts, that is, you use thoughts to evoke certain states of mind. And the third one, to observe thoughts, we could say that that's vipassana or mindfulness meditation. But let's talk about this second one. To use thoughts. Now, thoughts can have a tremendous power, for good or for evil. no doubt. Now, seeing as that seems to be a normal activity of the mind, rather than trying to fight against our thoughts, maybe there might be some situations where we can use them in a wholesome and creative way. And that's what anusati is. So, one might be to sit and to recollect, to think about the greatness of the Buddha. Okay? His life, his teachings, what he looked like, how he behaved. To sit and contemplate that. Dhammanosati may be to think about something that the Buddha said, like, say, a verse from the Dhammapada. That would be a good example. To think about that, maybe to chant it, as long as you know what it means, and simply spend 15 or 20 minutes contemplating, allowing the meaning to go deep. In the case of Sanghanosati, different ways you could do that. One way is you could think about all those who have... Can you still hear me above that noise? You can't. Could we maybe shut the door? Might that make a difference? I see. Right. What should we do? Should we stop for a while? Or? If I drop down a bit, just give me a signal and I'll put it back up again. Okay, how's that? At the back, can you hear?
Come closer. Go to the back. Get them to come closer.
Yeah, that's close enough. Yeah, please come closer. Please, come closer. So, how's that? You can hear, can you? Right. So, Sanghanosati, you can be thinking about the great saints through history. Ananda, for example, very lovely character, or Sariputta, or somebody like that. And think about their accomplishments, the things they taught, the joy of freedom they must have experienced. So Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, utilizing thoughts about those things to evoke a certain state of mind, a positive state of mind. My favorite is Silanusati, recollecting virtue. And this is how I do it. Once a week, I do a period of maybe 20 minutes mindfulness of breathing. Then I decide, I say, right, enough of that. Now I'm going to do Silanusati. And I call to mind the last week, if there has anything I have done which was kind or helpful or courteous for another person. I'll give you an example. Some time ago, I'm walking down the street. There were cars parked all along the pavement. But here there was a gap, and there was one man trying to park his car in that gap. Sort of thing you would see anywhere. I noticed that. I stopped and I helped him. I said, "Look, enough, a bit more, bit more, bit more." And he was able to get in. Very small thing. I noticed somewhere where I could help. I spent 4 or 5 minutes helping him, and I walked on. As I walked on, he thanked me. That was it. Nothing. I didn't save anybody's life. I just did something small and maybe you might think insignificant for another person. Here's another example. I was at the supermarket. Now, when I go to the supermarket, people really look at me. They say, "What the hell is that?" They don't see. Where I live in Australia, there are not many people walking around with tablecloths on. So sometimes I get, so I'm in line. I've got quite a lot of things that I have to buy. I'm waiting for the next person to check out. I notice behind me is a lady with 2 products. So I said to her, "You can go first, because I will take some time." She thanked me. She went first. I let her go first. She went off. Then I did my thing. No big deal. But I noticed somebody, and I noticed that I could do something for them at no cost to myself. So I will sit and I will recollect anything like that. And sometimes it gives me a nice feeling. That's the first thing I do. Then I think, second part I think about anybody who has done anything thoughtful, polite, or kind to me in the last week. I can usually think of something, and once again, it's usually something quite small. I think about that, and I am grateful to that person for having done that. I'm happy that they had the opportunity to do something for me. And once again, it can be something quite simple. Then I do the third part. I go through my memory carefully, and I think about, have I done anything that wasn't very nice? I snapped at somebody or something. And if I can think of something, I contemplate it. And I make a commitment. Try not to do that again. It wasn't very nice of you. Would the Buddha have done something like that? Probably not. I hope I remember not to behave like that again. Then I think, if somebody has done something thoughtless or petty to me, and if I can think of it, I forgive them for it. I feel sorry that you did something like that to me. I hope you learn from that. I hope you don't do it again. So I will do that sometimes once a week. And I have found that it is very... You quite often emerge from that feeling very positive. Now, I've heard people say, "Oh, that's just pride. You're proud." I don't agree with that. If you genuinely did something decent and good, you went out of your way, even a little bit, to help somebody else, I think you should rejoice in that. And in fact, there's a verse in the Dhamma where the Buddha says that. What is it? I can't remember. Yeah, that's the one. Idamodati, pechamodati, katapunyo. Okay. when people do good and they think about it, it gives them some joy. Okay, thank you for reminding me. How's that? Okay, thank you. So that's what I do. And then other days, maybe I do Marananusati. I reflect upon the fact that one day soon, I won't be here. And if you really think about that, suddenly quite a lot of your problems, which you thought were this big, are now really only that big. Quite a lot of the people that you don't like, you think, well, soon they'll be dead and I'll be dead too. Why carry on this argument? Forgive them and be done with it. Okay, so I do those. So that's the second meditation I do. And the last meditation I do is once again utilizing thoughts. And that's what you call loving kindness meditation or metta bhavana. Do you say Maitri Bhavana? You say Metta Bhavana, okay. So you probably know, those of you who come here, how to do that meditation. Seeing there's so much noise, I'm going to be brief. Oh, they're trapped here, aren't they? Yeah, right.
So you have to take long.
It's going to take a little. I think this is one of the most. It's evidence of how subtle was the Buddha's understanding of the human psyche. This is an extremely interesting meditation. I could tell you some interesting stories about that, but because of the noise, I'll be brief. You probably know how it's done. You sit, you make yourself comfortable, you relax, and then you call to mind, or you give a blessing to yourself. That's basically what you're doing. May I be well and happy. May I be peaceful and calm. May I be protected from dangers. May I achieve my aspirations. May my mind be freed from hatred. May my heart be filled with love. May I be well and happy. That's how I do it. Then I think of somebody I love. Someone whose presence is important for me. I do the same thing to them. Then I think of a neutral person, that is, someone I come into contact with regularly, but I don't like them or dislike them. They are neutral to me. I think of such a person and I do it to them. Then I think of somebody I don't like, and there are such people. My feeling is that most people have one or two people that they really hate. And then they have a large number of people that they don't like. Like, your brother-in-law. Oh, him. Oh. So you don't hate him. He's just a nuisance. He talks too much. You know that guy? He's always talking. He thinks he's great. He really irritates me. I think most of it got quite a few people like that. So according to the tradition, you don't think of somebody that you really hate. You think of somebody like your brother-in-law, You would prefer that he didn't come to your gathering. And if he comes, you talk to him, but you think, oh, God. Think of that person. And you extend that blessing to them. Well, he's a pain in the neck, and God, he says some stupid things, but I mean, he's not the only one. And even though I don't like him, his family like him. In fact, they may love him. So is it something wrong with them, or is it something wrong with me? Maybe I'm petty. Let go of that ill will, that resentment, that irritation, and treat him like a friend. I think this is an extremely wholesome meditation. And I think done with the right attitude, I think it can be very healing, not only for the person who does it, but for the people who move in the same circle as the person who does it. It can heal relationships, and I think all of us could probably improve at least some of our relationships. So I do that meditation very regularly, and I've found over time it has softened my character a bit. That's how I meditate. Now, nowadays, everybody seems to, at least in the West, I don't know about here, everybody wants to do vipassana. They're talking about the jhanas. I notice when they all meet together, they say, oh, you know, I got in the 5th jhana yesterday. How are you getting? Oh, I only got the 4th jhana. What about the 2nd jhana fact, did you? I don't worry about that. Yeah, I don't worry about that. My feeling is, if you're going to attain the jhanas, you have to change your lifestyle dramatically. You have to go off and live in a cave in the Himalayas. You have to have few distractions. You have to spend weeks in silence, and yes, then you may attain those states. Most of us can't do that. So we need a meditation that's suitable for our lifestyle. And I think these 3 meditations are very good for that. And that's why I do those meditations. So because of the noise, and maybe the time is up anyway.
We have some more time.
Okay.
Maybe you can take questions.
Oh, that.
I mean, up to you,
It's up to me, is it? So I hope that some of those ideas that I have shared with you might be interesting to you. And if there is anything you would like to ask concerning what I've talked about, I would do my best to answer any questions you might have. So I turn it over to you. Just hold that for a minute. This should be coming.
You okay, Randy?
Yep. Anything. Yes. Come down here. What's your name? I'm Vasudev.
I'm really fortunate to have come today and heard to your talk. So I would like to know if you have any, if you blog or if you have a YouTube channel, so that we can, people like me can learn from you more. So that's my question.
I used to blog. I blogged for nearly 10 years. Nearly every day for 10 years, because I got a mind full of ideas. I can't keep it still. So I believe, I haven't looked at it for quite some time, but I believe it's still up. It's called Dhamma Musings. Dhamma Musings, and that's what it is. It's just my musings on Buddhist history, Buddhist literature, meditation, Buddhism in the news. I believe a lot of people still watch it. I wouldn't, but it's there. And I think if you put my name in YouTube, you'll get some YouTubes. Some of them are very, very old. I wouldn't recommend them. Some of them have been made in the last few years in Malaysia. They're all great. So if you just put my name in, you might find something. And I've just published a new book, which I'm very proud of. It's called Footprints in the Dust. Footprints in the Dust. So if you go to Amazon, you can get that book there, and I can highly recommend it. It's a good book, I know, I wrote it, and it's not too expensive. Okay? Footprints in the Dust. Okay? Right. Thank you. Anything else?
Why wouldn't you recommend your old videos?
Oh, some of them are a bit... They're not technically very good. Some of the new ones they make in Malaysia are really technically very nice. Anything else? Yes. Would you?
Vandami Banteji, thank you very much for your teachings today. I wouldn't say teachings, your guidance. You mentioned something about meditation in movement, like different 3 types of movements. Could you suggest any meditation while we are, when you're working or something, when you're actually working, how to be in that meditative state? I feel it's very, very, for a normal person like me, I feel it's very difficult to be in a meditative state, be observant of your breath when you're actually working or talking. Would you suggest anything, any technique or something for that? Thank you very much.
Some years ago I went to Burma and I stayed with an eminent Burmese meditation teacher, and he was having a meditation course in the time I was there, and I was watching the people. And there are several things I noticed. They do sitting meditation, then they would do walking meditation. And there were 2 things that I noticed which I found interesting. They all looked as if they were about to be executed. I didn't see one person smile for 10 days. And that worried me. Whatever happened to the joy, the relaxation? They looked anything but happy and relaxed. But the thing I noticed most was how they were doing walking meditation. It seemed to me to be completely artificial. Lifting, 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 moving, 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 placing, 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 touching, 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 lifting, 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 moving, 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 going crazy, going crazy, going crazy. I seemed to me to be strange. Second thing is completely artificial. Third thing, clearly forced. Not natural, forced. And I noticed... First day, it took people quite a while to get to for the food. And over the 10 days, they got slower and slower and slower and slower. And at the end, only about an hour after the dimmer bell went, did they get to the Dharmasala. Sorry, I couldn't see the point in that. And the last thing I thought, maybe you can evolve a very highly developed state, and the minute you leave the meditation centre, that's the end of it. Because you simply can't function like that in daily life. Imagine what would happen here if you did that for 10 days or a 3-month meditation course, and then you tried to go to the shops. It'd take you 3 weeks to get to the shop. Lifting, walking. Okay? Now maybe it's useful. Some people have told me it is. Okay, if it's useful for you, then do it. This is what I do. I have to clean up my own house because I don't have any of the young guys there doing it all for me. So I have to do it myself. So sometimes I will select a particular activity. Let's say vacuuming the floor, which I do regularly. So I set a goal for myself. From the time I plug in the vacuum cleaner and switch it on, to the time I finish vacuuming and click it off, I will try to do that task as mindfully as possible. It may take 15 or 20 minutes. And as much as possible, I try to simply function on what I'm doing. It can be a challenge, but I can do it. Or here's another example. Before I go to bed at night, I say, tomorrow morning, from the time I wake up to the time I put on my clothes, I will try to do everything as mindful as possible. And I've tried to do this a few times, and quite often I wake up in the morning, I completely forget. So now I just write a little note for myself, put it beside my bed, so the first thing I see when I wake up is that, and then I do it. I get out of bed mindfully. A little bit slower than normal, but not artificially slow. I straighten the bed. I go into the bathroom, I go to the toilet, I clean my teeth, I wash my teeth out, I wash my mouth out, etc. Then I put on my robe, and I try to do everything as mindfully as possible. Not artificially slow, just aware of what I'm doing. And once I've put on my clothes, then I go about my normal life, and sometimes the mindfulness lasts a bit longer. So that's how, where is she? There you are. That's how I do what you might call walking meditation. I don't select an artificial place and an artificial behavior to do an artificial practice. I select a perfectly normal part of my daily life and simply try to do it as mindfully as possible. And there's quite a good book on this subject written by that well-known Vietnamese monk, Thich Nhat Hanh. And in one of his books, he says, washing the dishes to wash the dishes. I remember reading, what a good idea. So many people wash the dishes thinking, my brother's supposed to do this. Why do I always have to do it? Just wash the dishes in order to wash the dishes. That would be something similar to what I'm talking about. Just taking a daily activity and trying to do it as mindfully as possible. So that's my idea of introducing mindfulness into your daily life. If you can only be mindful while you're sitting in a quiet room, then you're only mindful of the least interesting part of your life. Whereas if you slowly introduce it into other aspects of your life, it might be quite useful. But once again, you don't have to do it my way. I'm just telling you what I do, and I found that quite useful. Okay? Yes.
My name is Hari Prasad, and while we are trying to train ourselves to meditate, I see that naturally happens in artists. For example, a painter. While he's painting, he's only painting. And he does this until it actually comes to a stage where it can be appreciated. Right? A singer, for that example. Therefore, art, while we are into science and engineering, we have become more mechanical rather. But the artists have this a kind of a naturally they are meditating without knowing or naming it or labeling it. Yeah, they don't just use the word meditate, but they're actually doing the work, right? Right, exactly. You just pointed out that washing the dishes. In fact, I'm right now cleaning my house because I had to move and rent it out. Therefore, if I am enjoying doing that, then I'm more or less actually meditating. If I am hating or I'm trying to the job, then I may not be meditating. Therefore, writing a journal, does it actually make it to do this anusati, like what I did, what I have been doing the whole day, that enters into my day-to-day journal, right, the diary. Does it actually entail to be a meditation also? Am I making sense?
I get the idea, yeah. Well, what have you found? What have you found? I've never done that. So when you do that, what have you found? Are you mindful or? Right. Okay. I would probably call that more a contemplation. Huh? It depends on definition, but I'd probably call that a contemplation. But there's nothing wrong with that. Huh? Anything else? Yes. Right.
I already know my because people will laugh at my question.
Okay. What's your name, sir?
My name is Srikant.
Rickard? Yeah.
Srikant. My question is, there has been a conflict in my mind for quite some time.
Right.
The conflict is this. By profession, I am a lawyer.
Get me out of here.
I know this would come. By profession, I am a lawyer. By principle, we follow, obviously, Buddhism. I am a Buddhist for about 2 decades now.
Right.
There has been this conflict, whether my profession is in conflict with the principles of the Dhamma.
What sort of lawyer? What law do you do?
I practice constitutional and criminal law.
Ah, interesting. Yeah.
So there has been a conflict between what my profession asked me to do by law,
Yeah.
where I cannot deny someone's representation in the
Right.
courts,
Yeah.
where I might have to not lie exactly,
Yeah.
but I might have to hide the truth sometimes
Mm.
to defend my client.
Mm-hmm.
So whether this conflicts with the Buddhist idea
Mm.
of not to lie.
Mm.
That's my question.
Yeah.
How do I process this whole thing in order to keep myself happy?
Mm. Okay. Thank you. You may be interested to know that a few years ago, when I was in Singapore, a judge from Malaysia came to see me. He was an Indian. He was a Hindu, but he had a great deal of respect for Buddhism, and he had a terrible burden. He had just sentenced an 18-year-old boy to hang. That's heavy. And he wanted to know what I thought about that. Why he came to see me, I don't know. But he came to me and he told me he feels very bad about this. And I said, well, you know, Buddhism, you're not responsible, but you're partly responsible for a young man's death. He's partly responsible for it too, because he broke the law. But you're not concerned about his responsibility, you're concerned about your responsibility and how you feel. So yes, you are partly responsible. And he said, but I have no choice. According to Malaysian law, if somebody is found guilty of smuggling more than a certain amount of drugs, it's the mandatory death penalty. And I don't want to make this man's life worse, but he asked me what I thought. And I said, you're wrong. You do have a choice. You can resign. And he said, how can I resign? I've spent my whole life working up to becoming a judge and I'd have to give it all up. I said, yeah, you would, just like the Buddha gave everything up. So I'm not telling you to do that, but you could do it. Judges sometimes do resign. Now, I'm not saying that that's easy. Sometimes living by your ideals is not easy. And that's when you know for yourself how deep your commitment is. Are you committed to certain values until it becomes uncomfortable and then you just brush it aside? What? I don't know. I can't answer that question. And then I'll tell you one more thing. Is this being recorded? Okay. I know a certain person in Sri Lanka. He was a senior judge and very, very committed to Buddhism. And by all that is right, when the old Chief Justice stepped down, he should have taken the position. In other words, the apex of his career. And what happened was the president at that time, when the Chief Justice stepped down, the president of that time had typed out a letter of resignation. And when this person came to be appointed by the president as Chief Justice, he was congratulated by the president and etc. And he said, all I asked of you is to sign this undated letter of resignation. You understand? So anytime you do something I don't like, I'll just put a date on this and I have your resignation. I can get rid of you. And what did he do? He thanked the the president, and said, I'm sorry, sir, I can't do that. And that was the end of his career. He never got to the position that he should have got. And he never told me this. I heard it from others. I had enormous respect for him. Sticking to your values and your ideals sometimes more than inconveniences you. Sometimes it ends your career. You make the choice. Now, just thinking about your position, the law has been perfected over, well, basically it's English law, isn't it, I suppose, modified for the Indian condition. They have over centuries modified it to get the best system that they can. It's not perfect. And it requires sometimes doing things like you mentioned, that is forgetting or looking in the other direction, things that you know are true. But the accepted system is that you are there for that client to do everything you can for him. That's what you're being paid for, either by the state or by that client, and you try to do that. The fact that you don't like some aspects of that, I think you've got two choices. To accept that that's the system, that's the accepted system, and nobody will blame you for doing your job well. And if we don't have that system, nobody's come up with a better system, not yet. So you're a part of the system. I would say do your job to the best of your ability and leave it at that. So my personal opinion is that's what it is. What's that? Okay, so there are several cases where you actually have said, I'll leave it to others. Yeah. Once again, I've come across professional people like that. Some time ago, a doctor. We were discussing abortion, which is legal in Australia. In fact, it's easily available. It's paid for by the state. And I asked him, because he's a very committed Buddhist, I asked him, what do you do? And he said, when people come to me and they say they want an abortion, I recommend somebody else for them. I don't do it myself. I don't want to be involved in that. If the client asks me what I think, I tell them. But I don't condemn them. I just say, I would recommend there's this particular doctor, he does things like that, you go there. So there are different ways of dealing with these particular problems. His way doesn't upset the system. It doesn't contradict the system. I think he does the right thing. And I think if you do your job as is expected, you're doing the right thing too. That's all I can say. Maybe one last question. Last question, yeah. This little guy, what is he? Did you put your hand up?
Yeah.
Namaste, Banteji. So, Banteji, I have laziness. So, I have laziness. So, I want to overcome this laziness. Like, just like you, I keep a sticky note near my bed. Like, I'll get up 5 o'clock in the morning, I'll study, then I'll get ready for school and go. But I get up in the 5 o'clock, then sleep again. Who cares? 5 minutes only now. Then I don't know. I get up at 8 o'clock. My mom pulls my leg and then she says it's time for school. Then I run to, change and then go to school. So I want to overcome this laziness, but I can't help but sleeping for 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you for that. How are you going at school? What are your marks like?
What's your grade?
Oh, what's your grade?
How is
I don't know if that's good, bad, average, what? Okay. So, seems to me you don't have a problem so far. So you're managing. I mean, this is quite a hard question to answer. How do I motivate myself? Well, the answer to that question is motivate yourself. Don't ask me. I don't. But if it isn't a major problem, perhaps you could do better. And I think that if you really wanted to do better, you probably would automatically be a bit more energetic. But I don't know that there's any magical technique whereby that can happen, or not one that I know of anyway. So I just say, get off your backside and get a bit more energy. That's all I would say. Okay, thank you for your questions. Oh, one more, quick. Definitely the last one. I'm exhausted. But these are good questions. Yeah. What's your name?
Pratik. A while ago, you gave the examples of mangoes and how you put down unhelpful thoughts. You also gave an example about loving kindness, how you use it to forgive people you might not like or you might even hate outright. So sometimes I'm able to do them successfully and I feel peaceful. But at other times, the negative thoughts or those people, they consume my mind. And what do I do in that situation to deal with it?
That's a practical question also. Well, once again, I don't think meditation is, it doesn't work all the time, or not the way you want all the time. So I sometimes think that you could eliminate the Noble Eightfold Path and just have the Noble Onefold Path, right sincerity. Huh? That is, if you are sincere, you will succeed. So that doesn't mean, if you're a Buddhist or you do meditation, automatically all your negativities will go away. Some people think this. Some people think that as soon as you put this on, ta-da, all your problems are gone. Suddenly hate, anger, irritation, laziness all disappears. It's not true. It doesn't happen. I know from personal experience. Okay? So it's the same with meditation. It doesn't work the way you want all of the time. But if you are sincere, and I assume you are, you will prevail in the end. One of the most useful things the Buddha ever said was no, it's not akupa. What is it? It's a gradual path, a gradual doing, a gradual... what's the Pali word? It'll come to me. There's a thing that the Buddha said which I think everybody should know. I'm trying to think of the Pali, but it escapes me. What's the word? Anupubba sikha, anupubba kiriya, anupubba patipada. Remember it if you can. Anupubba sikha, anupubba kiriya, anupubba patipada. It is a gradual path, a gradual doing, it's a gradual training, a gradual doing, a gradual path. It doesn't happen automatically. You need to have patience, perseverance, and sincerity, and it will come when it's ready, not when you are. So it's like a flower. It opens when the temperature is right and the sun's angle is right. It opens naturally. That's what I would say. Anupubba sikha, anupubba kiriya, anupubba patipada.